I am not an expert rider. In fact, I still crash all the time. But in the past 8 years, and through numerous trips and trainings and coaching sessions, I have started to notice some things that I do and think differently than I did when I first started riding off-road motorcycles. Most of these lessons are things that I've learned the hard way. My goal with this video is not to pontificate about my limited riding skills, but hopefully to help you avoid making the same mistakes I did over and over and over again. This is not textbook knowledge. This is feelings and personal realizations. I may get some terms wrong and or explain things incorrectly, but this is what makes sense to me personally right now. With that in mind, here are 5 things I do and see and notice and think differently now than I did when I was a brand new beginner off-road motorcycle rider. The first big difference between beginner and experienced off-road motorcycle riders is that beginners see obstacles where experienced riders see lines. Vision is so important. Experienced riders look farther ahead. Noobs will look right at their front tire. An experienced rider knows to approach a hill climb and look at the entire hill. Figure out where you're gonna go. Where are the lines? How do the passable lines connect? You will see a flow that goes around, through, and over the obstacles on the hill or whatever the technical section. Noobs will just see the first obstacle and target fixate on it, right? That's your first instinct. That's what you do early on. You don't think about what's past it. You think, I got to get around or over that obstacle. Eventually you start to see multiple obstacles, right? But you're still focusing on the obstacles rather than looking at the paths around them. An experienced rider will put together a path, see the path that leads them all the way to the top of the hill and beyond. Noobs just see obstacles that they have to avoid and don't really think past those obstacles. The first time you catch yourself doing this is a glorious revelation. I would encourage you to try it the next time you're looking at an intimidating section. Stop focusing on the obstacles, stop focusing on the rocks and ruts and roots and other things you have to get over, and start looking for the line that connects from the bottom of the hill all the way to the top that avoids or surmounts all of those obstacles. Think about the section as a whole rather than a series of individual challenges, and then stop looking at the challenges and start looking at the lines that go around the challenges. Eventually you get so good at this that you can calmly plan and assess your line without even stopping, whether you're going uphill, downhill, or through a technical section. And that is a great, very confidence-inspiring feeling. The number 2 big difference between experienced riders and beginner off-road riders is that beginners sit on the bike. Experienced riders ride the bike. I am still struggling with this one myself. Steering on loose surfaces is more about moving the bike underneath you. Balance is so key to riding off-road, but many of us aren't good at it. It is hard work. You have to use muscles and stuff. So beginners don't have those muscles developed. They don't know they're supposed to use those muscles. They think, I'm sitting on the bike will carry me up. And it will in a lot of cases, but in order to ride well, faster, more safely, it becomes a little bit more of a workout. You have to engage your core and your legs and everything else a lot more. So that's what I mean by ride the bike versus sit on the bike. The best way to improve this is static balance exercises. You will be amazed what happens when you get a bike standing up and the only thing keeping it upright is you and you're not moving. And it's also a great way to see just how exhausting maintaining your balance and riding a motorcycle is supposed to be, because it takes a lot of work to keep a bike static balanced. Good riders balance on top of the bike like a camera on a gimbal. They're constantly shifting their weight back and forth, side to side, keeping that contact patch firmly beneath them while maneuvering around obstacles. This takes trust in your tires and commitment to doing things at speed. It's also intuitive, which means you have to learn to do it without thinking, and the only way you can do that is purposeful practice. You have to consciously decide to ride the bike rather than sit on the bike. Riding a motorcycle well is physical. It takes energy and physical fitness. Me personally, at this point in my life, my fitness often runs out long before my skills do. I know what I need to do, I know that I can do it, but I'm just too tired to do it consistently and for long periods of time when I get out on super difficult trails. So we're working on that, but my point is, beginners think riding is passive. Experienced riders know that riding is a very active activity. People say that, oh, riding motorcycles is lazy. Not when you're doing it well off the pavement, I'll tell you that much. It is as much a workout as anything else. And if you don't believe me, go ride with the E-Rag guys. up in northern Canada and see if you get through the day without getting a little tired. The number 3 difference between experienced riders and beginner off-road motorcycle riders is that experienced riders are gentle and precise. Beginners are grabby and jerky. Or another way of putting it in video game terms is beginners are digital, right? On and off. There's a D-pad, you're either pressing up or you're not. Experienced riders are analog. There are degrees. Right? You can push it a little or you can push it a lot, and the response you get corresponds to how much pressure and how precise you are in applying that pressure. Beginners will use their full hand. They'll use 4 fingers on the clutch and the brake. I know they teach this in the MSF classes. That's great because, grip strength is important, but off-road riding in particular, when you're needing that finesse and carefulness, 2 fingers is what I do personally. Some people will go with 1. I don't like 1. I just don't feel like it's precise enough, but 2 enables me to gently squeeze and release the brake and the clutch, to feather the clutch and stay in that traction zone, to be my own traction control on a bike that doesn't have traction control, and be my own ABS on a bike that doesn't have ABS, because when you're going straight down a very slippery, muddy hill, sliding the back tire is not the best deal. You've got to find a way to modulate that. That requires precise and subtle movements, not grabbing, jerking on and off the clutch and the brake. Experienced riders understand this. New riders don't know how to use their front brake on uneven surfaces. They don't know how to use their front brake on tough technical downhills, and so they end up barely hanging onto the bike like a bucking bronco instead of just slowly picking their way, feathering and modulating that front brake so that the front tire doesn't lock up. This is another thing that only comes from practice, but just know if in your head right now the brake and clutch are a on-off switch and you don't feel super comfortable being precise and crawling along in a slow race or something like that, that's a skill worth practicing because it will make a massive difference in your ability and confidence off-road. The number 4 difference between beginners and experienced off-road riders is that beginners go slow when they should go fast, and they go fast when they should go slow. Off-road riding is counterintuitive. Your instincts are wrong in a lot of cases. For example, in a technical, rocky, chunky section, experienced riders can use balance and clutch control to work their way through, picking the best line and changing direction at will, and they do not need to go super fast to do it. They're standing up so they can see and either avoid big obstacles or line up to hit them at optimal angles. A noob will fixate on the obstacles, carry too much speed, and barely hang on to the bike as it's trying to bounce them off of it, or immediately sit down and waddle and pray that they make it through the section. On a technical downhill, for instance, experienced riders know to use their front brake to go slow, pick their way, have time to assess the situation, and pick good lines. A beginner will be afraid to use that front brake or to use it very much, have almost no braking power, and just careen down the hill at a breakneck pace, holding on and praying. On a steep uphill, a beginner will get nervous and slow down, maybe even stop. An experienced rider knows that momentum and traction are a continuum. The more you have of one, the less you need of the other. They'll speed up at the bottom of the hill to carry momentum up the hill, knowing that they'll need it to get up there in a case where there is inconsistent traction. Sand is another great example of the counterintuitiveness, and where a new rider will approach a sandy section and slow down and attempt to ride through it slowly, because sand is scary and it sucks. Believe me, I know that one. I made this mistake myself 100 times. An experienced rider will look at the other side, lean back, hit the throttle, and just glide right through the sand, skim across the surface. Beginners slow down when they should speed up, and speed up when they should slow down. And this is one of those skills that you have to gain experience to learn, to counteract your own instincts, which are telling you to sit down, slow down, because you're gonna crash and die. Which leads me to the 5th and final and perhaps most significant difference between beginners and experienced off-road motorcycle riders. Beginners hesitate, experienced riders commit. Why? Because experienced riders see themselves succeeding, and beginners predict failure. All the beginner thinks about is what happens when they get bucked off the bike or fall. They don't think about what happens when they get through. The narrative ends at the obstacle in front of them, right? They see the sand, they think, I'm gonna crash in that sand, and they crash in that sand. They don't think, I'm gonna glide through that sand and cruise up the hill on the backside. They see a nasty rut in the road, and they don't think, well, I'm just gonna hit it parallel and then I'll be on to the next thing. They think, oh God, there's a big rut there, I don't know what to do. They stop, they slow down, they crash, they don't get through it. A experienced rider will commit, and they'll commit without thinking. Beginner riders think too much, hesitate, and fixate on the hardest part of whatever section they're riding through, they completely miss the forest for the trees. There's a big rock in the middle of the uphill. They see that. They don't think about what happens after they get over or around it. They just see the rock and surprise, surprise, they hit it and stop. One part of this commitment is beginners sit down when they're scared and experienced riders stand up. I mean, it makes sense, right? When it's a scary section, you sit down because the ground is closer and that is safer because you won't fall as far. But that is planning to fall, whereas you should be thinking, I'm going to stand up because I am going to get over or past or through that obstacle and keep riding, and I need to see what's going on beyond it. It is easier to maneuver and control the bike when you're standing. Your vision is better, and when you're standing up, you're actually less likely to get hurt because you're already halfway off the bike. So you're less likely to get caught underneath it or have it drag you down. I have so many times just successfully let the bike drop and walked off of it and never hit the ground myself. I only hit the ground when I crash sitting down, or the vast majority of the time, 90% of the time. I can't think of a time when I hit the ground hard while I was standing on the bike. In fact, you just ride through most things. Experienced riders commit and hang on through things like momentary loss of traction. I love going back and looking at this video I made where I compiled all my crashes from the first few years of riding. 90% of them are the exact same thing. I go into a corner, I'm not leaned forward enough, I'm not standing up, my front tire slides sideways. In my head I go, oh, I'm crashing, and I bail off the bike. You can see it. I let the bike go underneath me, and that is why I hit the ground. This is the kind of thing that now I'll go into a similar situation, notice that front tire sliding and then catching again. Because I have faith in my traction, I have confidence, and I've committed to the turn and putting my weight where it needs to be to maintain traction. That is a big difference between a brand new and an experienced rider, is that full commitment and riding things out rather than just being like, oh, I'm crashing and letting the crash happen, or really deciding you're crashing and then crashing. That's what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. Unfortunately, the only way to really develop these skills, instincts, confidence, and commitment is through time and experience. So you got to get out there and put miles on your bike. You can accelerate that process through training and coaching, and I've had a great experience with the Traction E-Rag crew up in Canada at the XT-ADV event. I've learned a ton every time I've gone up there, and I'll be back up there this year in Canada. So check that out if you're interested in a week of intense and awesome training and riding. There'll be a link to that in the description. Another thing I've done is that training I did out here actually in Oregon with Shane Watts, the former Australian enduro champion. He beat me up for 2 straight days, but man, did I gain a lot of confidence on that. He's also coming back this year, and we're maybe putting together a special Dork training where I'll be there and we'll be learning on our dual sport and adventure bikes. So I will put a link to that in the description. Keep an eye out for that. If you're looking for training that will help you accelerate your process from beginner to experienced rider. Notice I didn't say good, I said experienced, because you need experience to improve these skills. In the meantime, just keep riding and building your confidence, and it won't be long before you start to notice yourself approaching difficult sections differently. More vision, more commitment, less hesitation. Confidence is key. Get out there and ride and be successful. When you're successful doing something difficult, that breeds more success. Every time you do something a little bit outside your comfort zone, that comfort zone gets a little bigger, and you'll be shocked how much bigger you can make it over the course of a few years, practicing and riding and getting out there and facing your fears. I can't believe the things I don't think about or hesitate on that used to scare the crap out of me. It's amazing. You can get there too. Just keep riding, just keep swimming. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Good luck out there on your adventures. Hope to see you on the trails. But for now, and as always, I just want to say thank you very much for watching, and please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Excellent!